Kia ora tātou. He mihi nunu ki a koutou kua huhu mai te rānei. Ki a koutou ngā rakatira o Cromwell Ward. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. I'd like to welcome you all and open this meeting by welcoming our elected members and none of their whānau here today to support them for this meeting. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to this meeting, the first inaugural meeting of the Cromwell Community Board for the 2022 to 2025 triennium. I'd like to acknowledge first of all the unity that this board has already shown in agreeing to move the meeting so that we could all be here today, and I think that's a fantastic message to the community. Today we're going to see you all sworn in to the Cromwell Community Board to make the declaration of office as you have been elected to do so. Today's meeting is largely ceremonial and procedural, and it's my role to chair the first part of this meeting. I'm going to swear in the Deputy Mayor as a board member and then hand over to him in his capacity as Deputy Mayor to swear in all other community board members. I will then continue to chair the meeting until an election has been completed and a new chair of the Cromwell Community Board has been elected. The new chair will then take over the meeting, chair the rest of the meeting, including the election for a deputy chair of the Cromwell Community Board. And then the rest of the meeting is really comprised of a range of legal and other documents that are required to set up a functioning council, and the same papers that are being adopted by councils and community boards across New Zealand in these first weeks after the election. We have no apologies, so if we can note that. And as Chief Executive, it is now my pleasure to ask the Deputy Mayor to do his declaration.
I, Neil Gillespie, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
Thank you. I'll leave the rest here.
Thank you. Sarah Brown.
I, Sarah Brown, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act. Thank you.
Anna Harrison.
I, Anna Harrison, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
Carol Lawless.
I, Cheryl Laws, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
Mary McConnell.
I, Mary McConnell, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act.
And Bob Scott.
I, Bob Scott, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 or any other act. Thank you.
Just a passing note, the Mayor would have liked to have been here, but he's got some council business north. He had a similar excuse in 2019. Bob.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Neil, and congratulations to all of you. I really look forward to the period of time we have together over this training. I'm just going to move on to our next matter of business, which is item 22.7.2, which is the appointments of chair and deputy chair. Before we can conduct the election itself, we must decide on a voting system for the election, and I'm going to invite Wayne up to speak to that.
Everyone, and once again, congratulations. So the first part of this is to pick a voting system, and the Local Government Act 2002 instructs us how to do that. The choice of System A or System B. System A has nominations, and then if no one has a majority, then there will be round by round until, so if there was, say there was 4 candidates, after a round, if there was no majority, then the last one would fall away and there'd be 3, so on and so on. System B is a bit more straightforward, where there's just 1 round of voting and the person who has the highest number of votes is the winner. We're recommending today option B because it's simple, because it's 1 round of voting, and also System A is probably more styled towards a larger group, where there could be 3 or 4 candidates sitting in. I mean, I guess unless everyone as a nomination for chair. It's probably not going to happen. So that's why we're recommending Sister B.
Any questions for Wayne? Discussion? Do I have someone to move A and B?
I'm ready to second.
Sarah and Anna? All in favour?
Aye.
And against? So it is. So given that, I'm going to call now for nominations and seconders to the position of chair for the Cromwell Community Board.
I'd like to nominate Anna Harrison.
I'll second that. Any other nominations? In case, I would like to declare Anna as the reappointed chair of the Cromwell Community Board. Congratulations, and I will invite you to relieve me of this position and put me firmly back in this race.
Oh, you loved it.
Probably won't see me running anytime soon.
Did we scare you that much?
Anyway, you can still be some chair. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Thank you. I'll find my phone. Ka nui te koa me te haere, peace to taki e a koutou, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. I'm really honoured to get the opportunity to be your chair for a second term. I think that we have some amazing work that we have started and that we are about to take further in this next term. And it's lovely to have that opportunity to lead this team as we make those moves forward. And I really appreciate that after having been the reason that we are delayed for a week, having unfortunately contracted COVID at a conference in Auckland last week. Apologise, it was the worst timing in the world. Believe me, it was worse for me being stuck in Auckland, far away from friends and family. But I really appreciate that we've been able to do this a week later, and I'm really looking forward to the next 3 years of us working together. So that brings me to calling for nominations for the role of Deputy Chair.
I'd like to nominate Bob Scott.
A seconder.
Can actually second myself, can't I? So I'll do that, please.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Deputy Chair's role. You can choose to stay there or you can go and sit with my phone and my jacket over there.
I'll take the phone.
It
I've smacked the camera, unfortunately, so you probably don't want to. It's got money to be spent on it.
might be a whole lot of work on that phone. I wouldn't go anywhere near it. It's not about kids and stuff.
I'll stay here, thank you.
Congratulations, Bob, and I'm really looking forward to us as a team cohesively moving ourselves forward and working together to get the projects that we've already got on the go in the long-term plan, and to get our get any new things that come along. There's always exciting stuff going on in a growing town such as ours. So thank you for that. Now we get to the really exciting parts of the meeting, of course, which are item 22.7.3, which is the statutory advice and code of conduct on page 16. Just bear with us all while we try out our new tablets and find our way around our agendas in a slightly different format.
Madam Chair, you happy for me to stay here to present this report?
Absolutely, everybody fine with that? Cool, thank you.
So as Chief Executive, and sorry councillors, I had to listen to this more than once, I am required to advise you of legislation relevant to your office and performance of your duties, as well as present a code of conduct for adoption at this first meeting. So this paper that's in front of you fulfills those legislative obligations. I will try to be brief, but I would like to talk through the pieces of legislation because it's important that you understand that the onus is on you to abide by the law and the performance of your duties, and it's helps if I just lay out some of what that looks like. The first piece of legislation is the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, which sets out the parameters by which information and communications received and made in your official capacity are made public. I want to note this includes any liaison roles you hold as a board member. It determines when public agendas and reports must be available, and it's important to be cognizant that other than exceptions that are prescribed by law, all information obtained by you in your official capacity is discoverable and is therefore publicly available. The Local Authorities Members' Interest Act 1968 as an act that relates specifically to the making of contracts between local authorities and its members, and the restrictions of the actions on members when they have pecuniary interest in a matter. This is the act that also prohibits a member from participating in discussion or voting on a matter in which the member has directly or indirectly any pecuniary interest other than an interest that is in common with the public. As you may be aware, the obligation on declaring an interest greater than the general public rests with you each as individual members. The Crimes Act 1961, you should in particular note sections 99, 105 and 105A, all of which deal specifically with the issue of bribery and corruption. The Secret Commissions Act 1910, let's have a wee giggle at the date on that, relates to the receipt or giving of gifts as a means of inducement or showing favour. That's important you understand this piece of legislation because you'll find yourself out at things presenting as a community board member and you may be offered gifts. So understanding how to appropriately deal with that is important. Happy to talk about it at any time. The Financial Markets Conduct Act 2013. It's an act that places similar obligations on you as members as it does to a company director whenever council offers financial products. The financial product includes debt arrangements and other such things. The Local Government Act 2002, which relates to the requirements of a member having to vacate their office as a member in the event of a conviction of more than 2 years, or if you cease to be an elector or are disqualified from registration as an elector. The Public Records Act 2005, which is designed to keep the public service accountable by ensuring records are full and accurate, well maintained and accessible, and it also defines what constitutes a record. The Privacy Act 2020, which determines how we are required to collect, store, use and share information, and the Protected Disclosures or the Protection of Whistleblowers Act 2022, which provides protection for employees when disclosing serious wrongdoings by their employer or fellow employees. In addition to the legislation, there are 2 copies of a code of conduct on your agenda. One has fact changes in it that shows how it differs from last term, and the other is a clean copy so that you can see what it looks like in its entirety. The code of conduct is based on LGNZ, Local Government New Zealand, just in case Mary hasn't heard of LGNZ yet. Advice with some additions that we've identified where improvement was needed over the last training. It is consistent with code of conducts that have been adopted by all of the other community boards, council and other councils across New Zealand. Happy to take any questions.
When will the 1910 Act be repealed, changed and updated, do you think?
It's when it's no longer relevant.
With the economy the way it's going, people aren't going to be gifting very often.
It must have been pretty successful because I would imagine if it didn't take effect, then it would have been appealed by now.
Yeah, I'm completely unaware of how many amendments may have been made to it along the way. If it's like the RMA, it could be quite long.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any provision in the code of conduct for a precursory step to a code of conduct being issued? The sentence that interests me, it's protect the board from the risk of member misconduct is the intention of the code of conduct. But I feel like it's quite a final step. It's quite a serious step, and there's nothing in between. And I guess coming from a public business background where you've got those verbal warning, written warning, you know, there's several phases. This seems very singular, and I'm wondering if that's if there's any scope to stretch that out a wee bit.
I want to say it's such a different arrangement to an employment situation where you might go through some of those sorts of processes. It's uncommon in Central Otago in my time here that it's invoked.
Yeah.
I think we tend to have very good people sitting around who talk to each other and have conversations rather than relying on the code of conduct.
Yeah.
There is a process you go through, of course, if somebody does raise a matter under the code of conduct that may mean it goes nowhere or somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's probably where you.
Yeah, how, I guess, how official is that? You know, I mean, a code of conduct isn't good as a look, as well as, you know, if you get to that point and that's necessary, that's understandable, but knowing the pathway to that and how we could resolve that openly and honestly and properly, I guess is my question. Is there a more formal way of recognising that, or not really?
No, not with the tools that are currently available in the system. However, if you wanted to raise something openly and thoroughly, then you have these meetings every 6 weeks as well.
Yeah.
You have those conversations.
The key thing to me is that there's a clear code that details the conduct that's expected. And then it is quite clear that if you breach that code, then there's a process to work through. Now, I guess we could try and create some other way of doing it and putting something in beforehand. But I think that the way the legislation sets it out for us, and I've been party to code of conducts, a couple or three, and usually it's sort of, when it's raised, it's a bit like, you annoy me, you've done something wrong, I'm going to raise it. And then it will be assessed then to see if it goes to those next steps. So there's a hurdle that's placed there. It's a reasonably high hurdle. And then it goes back to what the code actually says, the behaviour. And someone makes, I can't think who it is without looking at it, there's an assessment made of whether that actually breaches or is
material or not.
yeah, but it's material or not. And that's sort of the
That's the
gate.
threshold.
Yeah, the threshold. Yeah, if you don't get through that gate, then my experience is if the agreed party never agrees, that's a fact. But generally it goes through and comes out, and we have had a couple or three.
Yeah.
And
And
there's that grey area there where it is investigated, is what you were saying, that
Yeah.
something comes up, it isn't an instant, there is an investigation before action will be taken.
And I would have said that the people that I know who've been involved in the past have probably been well aware of their behaviour before it happened.
Are we at the point where we can go back to page number 16 and to the recommendations, which are A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance, B, notes the advice given on relevant legislation, and C, adopts the code of conduct. Can we have a mover and a seconder, please? Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you, Bob. All in favour? Anyone against? Thank you. That takes us to our next item, which is the equally scintillating adoption of the standing orders. But terribly important, of course.
Absolutely. So the standing orders that are in front of you on the paper are the updated orders from Local Government New Zealand. Again, they are consistent with the standing orders that are being adopted across councils across New Zealand over these weeks. As a part of your adoption, there is a couple of choices you have to make, which are listed in recommendation B. One is to enable provisions for meetings by audio-visual link. Just want to note that you can use audio-visual. If you are attending online a meeting, you will not be counted as quorum under the legislation. To enable a casting vote for the chairperson, and to endorse option C, informal, as the default for speaking and moving motions. Any questions or comments?
I have one question. If you're attending a meeting by an audio visual link, once you're sworn in, you can vote still.
You can vote, but you don't form part of the quorum.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
there were special conditions put in for when we needed to be completely online in the last one.
It would be nice to see the legislation change permanently towards what is the new rule, but we're not there yet.
Might have avoided last week. If legislation was up to date and current, it might have avoided what happened last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, go figure.
Yeah.
Just thinking out there, legislation makers. But simple, eh?
So that takes us back to the recommendations on page 73 of your agenda, which are A, we received the report and accept the level of significance, and B, 1, 2 and 3 adopts the revised local government New Zealand standing orders with the following amendments: enable provisions for meetings by audio visual, link enable the casting vote for the chairperson, endorse option C informal as the default for speaking and moving the motions. Over and seconder. Thanks Sarah. Thanks Mary. All in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? The next item is 22.7.5 on page 165 of your agenda, which is council organisations and policy on appointment of directors. Wayne, Jane.
So this is a report mostly, excuse me, for your information. The council doesn't have any council controlled organisations, but it asks you to read the report asks you to read the policy and just be aware of it. In light of the fact that in another report, this board is responsible for nominating trustees and the like for other entities, and just to be aware of that is essentially what's for.
Any further discussion from anybody? Okay, so on page 165, recommendations A, B and C. Receives the report and accepts the level of significance, makes appointments as recommended elsewhere in the agenda in light of the contents of the report, receives the policy on appointment and remuneration of directors to council controlled organisations and council organisations. And then move in second. Bob, thank you, Cheryl. All in favour? Okay, that takes us to item 22.7.6 on page 171 of your agenda, which is community board expenditure. Welcome, Saskia.
Thank you very much. This paper here serves as a bit of an introduction to finances in local government. They are quite complex, and you'll see a lot of me and my team over the next 3 years for the new members. So what I just wanted to talk to today was really an outline of how we set the budget. So we are about to embark on the long-term plan. Council signed off the high-level timeline yesterday. I will be coming to you guys early next year with a bit of an overview of the community board's role, the key decision times for the community board, and that through that process you will set your community board budget for the next 10 years. And then what we do in alternate years is an annual plan. And that's your opportunity to really, if there's new stuff that's come up in the community, or I don't know, you've had requests from the community to mow the lawns more often, that's when you consider those requests. You set the budgets that will go up to council to be approved. What happens then is staff will go away and do what you've asked us to do within those budgets. We will report back quarterly to you all on how we're tracking against the budgets that you have approved. So your first one will actually be the next board meeting. And during the year, unless of course there's something quite extraordinary come up that you might consider through your reserve allocation that would go up to council, really the only discretionary budgets you have is the grants budget. So again, you'll set those through the financial planning cycles, and twice a year, Paula Peno and Rebecca Williams and Ali Mason will come up to you with the requests within the community and tourism areas for those budgets. But again, if you feel within those annual plan or LTP cycles you haven't quite got those buckets right, or you want to adjust them, that's your time to adjust them. So you'll see lots of myself and my team over the next 3 years. So I just wanted to give a bit of an overview because it is very different from private practice. And yes, I say we will we'll walk you through it, and lots more to come. Any questions at this point? Save them up.
I'd just like to say, in the appendix, there seems to be an error in the date. Operative date number, paragraph 10, it says will come into effect on the 26th of October 2002. I think that should be 22.
Oh, yes, apologies. So that would have been picked up by the track changes. So that's the delegations manual. So I should have mentioned that that sets out the delegations for this community board. Thank you very much. We will fix that. And in addition, we've gone back up to council yesterday with an amended delegations. It doesn't affect the community boards. Those were all in relation to the CEO delegations and just adjusting those for the new restructure. Thank you. Apologies for not doing, accepting probably the track change is what we did do right there. Yeah.
So that takes us back to the recommendation on page 171. It's just that the report we received. Sarah, Cheryl, all in favour? Anyone against? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Saskia. Back to Wayne. Item 32.7.7 on page 213 of your agendas, appointments to subcommittees and other community organisations.
By the start of the training, as many will know, elected members are posted, I don't know if that's the right word, to certain external organisations. You'll remember back in earlier this year, there was a review on those groups and also a change of potentially of what elected members did there, if they were called representative or liaison. And here in the recommendations is the what was decided, and so we can work through the list to see who might like to act as, I think they're all liaison now, who would like to represent the board with those external groups. I'll just point out in the recommendations, the Cromwell Resource Centre Trust, the Turf Trust, and also the Cromwell College Charitable Trust. They don't need to have anything done to them now. It's when the position becomes available. So I don't need to.
At the moment, Cheryl sits on the Cromwell Resource Centre Trust.
And I just think there needs to be a correction. We don't appoint representatives to that Resource Centre Trust. We appoint trustees.
Very true. Oh,
They are trustees. They're not board members. We appoint the trustees.
That would be
And the same with the Turf Trust.
I am actually that appointed trustee.
We appoint trustees.
Representatives. Yeah, I think that's just the wording. But yes, it is a trustee.
Yes, yeah, it's not a representative. I think it's quite important that it reflects that, because we do not appoint someone to represent us on that trust. We appoint the trustees.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
We've been through those processes in the last couple of years.
Yes. Yeah, there was one last year.
There was the Cromwell College Trust last year.
Yeah.
And the sports turf, I think
That was me.
that was you.
Yeah.
So we also have Sarah sitting on that trust. Righty ho. So
And sorry, can I just clarify? Because I don't think we appoint two members to the charitable trust, the Cromwell College Charitable Trust. Again, it's two trustees, isn't it?
we appoint two, not two of our
No,
members.
but sorry, I read that and go. I read that and it says two members, and this is what. Yeah, so
That makes up.
should I think it should use the term trustees. That's what we actually appoint.
I think in that particular case, it's just saying two members of the Cromwell College Charitable
I
Trust.
think it's just that the language is ambiguous.
Yes, yeah, we'll change that language. Yeah.
Thank you. Righty ho. So if we work down the list, there are of course some organisations on this list that already have people who've been appointed from the last term, and it will be whether you're wish to continue that liaison role. And then, of course, with members who have left, with Tony and Verna having stepped down from their elected positions, that we have some organisations that no longer have a representative. And I think that the Bannockburn Community Centre Management Committee and the Bannockburn Recreation Reserve Management Committee would both be in that category. I think that Buck was the person who was working with the Bannockburn community. Anyone who's got an interest in working with the Bannockburn community would like to sit on, liaise with those organisations.
Maybe it might just help that sometimes the organisations don't ask you, don't tell you.
Yeah.
So it might be appointed for hours and first you get told, they get told who it is, but quite often they don't choose to include you, which is their prerogative, because we have no right to go in there as of right. So if that helps.
Reasonably self-sufficient.
I think he did attend.
Yeah, I think he did. He wasn't.
And that was one that I thought that we felt as a board was quite
Yep.
important to have, because there's some things that we have some oversight over. So knowing what they're doing is quite a useful thing in that space. So that is one that probably does need somebody. Do you know how frequently they meet?
I'd be happy to take that on.
Would you? Okay. Thank you, Bob. People happy with that? Cromwell and Districts Community Trust.
Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry, Madam Chair. Have I taken on two there? Or?
Well, I'm not sure that.
Yes, they are different.
They are different. I'm not sure that the representative from us was actively engaged with the Community Centre Management Committee. I don't.
That's a really good example. That's the old that's the hall and the old church that we bought for the community. So yeah, the involvement there is probably negligible, but certainly from the reserve there is a connection there.
My name next to that one. What do you say?
If I could add, the liaison roles technically do not require you to attend every meeting. And there may be matters of the board you think it's worthwhile. And it's not to be a member or advocate on behalf of that group. It's be the point of the bridge between that group and this board. So it would be good for us to be able to advise that group, but there is something they can find if they're trying.
I am happy to have my name put next to them and see if I can, if they will.
I think it makes sense rather than give Bob both of you did BBMCCI.
Yeah.
Then Bob did the reserve.
Right, okay.
That work. I think the reserve's probably the more crucial there, because they are much more active in their liaison with us. Cromwell Districts Community Trust.
Who was that previously?
I don't know.
Obviously, it doesn't take a lot of time.
You know, Shirley? Sorry. Do you know who was on the Cromwell Districts Community Trust as a liaison? Verna was, okay.
Have we stepped up to 2 from 1 then? That's 2.
The Cromwell District Museum used to have 2, and it's only 1 on this list, I think.
I wonder if they have been reversed.
I
don't think that the community trust would ever have been 2 people from the board as liaison. 1's enough, probably more than enough. Yeah, I think they've been reversed. 1.
It is good to have 1, yes. Thank you for answering that question for me from the gallery.
So that's the group that's responsible for our community plan work. Yeah.
So it's an advocacy group.
Do that. You can probably with fit there actually. So that was Mary on the Cromwell Districts Community Trust, and I think that we've got a Cromwell and Districts Community Trust person sitting in the corner who thinks that we usually only have 1.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. The Cromwell District Museum, we've had 2. We don't really need 2 would be, and I don't think that they would be expecting us to have 2. I would be more than happy to continue my role on the Museum Trust. I enjoy that wee group. We know that we've got Cheryl already appointed on the Cromwell Resource Centre Trust. The Cromwell Youth Trust, I have been the liaison, and that one, when they've got changes of personnel of fallen out of their email tree from time to time. They've now actually rejigged their meetings so that they cross over with the Museum Trust meeting, so I can't actually get to both. Super. So we've got Sarah, who will be on the Youth Trust. We've already got our appointees on the sports turf, because you are a trustee of that. Old Cromwell, Cheryl, you had that role over the last term. Are you happy to continue in that role? Yes.
Can I ask a question about that? Because no, sorry, I just refer back that organisation, I think, has a considerable sort of portfolio of property they look after. Is that really not a case for having a representative rather than a liaison?
They are very much their own group.
So
Yes, sorry.
Old Cromwell's a registered charitable trust, been around since they created what's down there, all the infrastructure that's been created by them.
Yeah.
It's on parcels of land that are owned by the council and Crown land, and so they are the tenant, the lessee of that land, and then they lease their buildings to the various operations that happen down there. So they're their own entity. Their trustee did used to actually have that one of the members of their trust was a community board member. That's been changed. It's problematic for them as well. So it's just a liaison role, and we have no more influence on that than we do on the Cromwell Voice.
I think that Cheryl has been really good at bringing back things from that trust group to our group. And you, I mean, from your perspective, you were the person who was in that liaison role in the last term. You feel that works? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And let's put the worst case scenario. If Old Cromwell was to change its setup and people didn't want to be part of it, guess who gets the baby?
Yes, so I suppose that becomes a different conversation, doesn't it, about what happens if the trust fails or something goes completely wrong there. The Lowburn Hall Committee, is that you, Mr. Gillespie?
Yeah, they might invite me to a meeting one day. That was my example, was that I don't need.
They're not, and they're quite a capable committee, aren't they? And
they know where I am. The good thing there, they got a situation where they are now the owner of that building as well. Although it's on council land, they own the building, but they run them. They're quite self-sufficient, so similar to Old Cromwell. And the reality is that they need some council and some community board connection, then they know who to contact, and that's all it has to be.
Yeah. Pies and District Community Groups, that was Buck, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm happy given it.
With that Lowburn connection.
Yeah. Happy to pick that up, but again, no, through a revision of their plan now, I think.
Is that group actually active?
They may or may not be.
The Pies group. I thought they were active.
Well, they've got their own group for the Utility Society, which is part of the community. It's not for us to determine whether they're active or not. If they want to connect with us, they can.
Rebecca, did you have a comment on that? Rippenvale Hall Committee. Who was that?
That was me.
That was you, and were they active, and did you get to go?
I've never had any contact from anybody from that group.
You won't.
And I think just recently I tried to find whether there was actually any contacts at all. And it seems that the council records show that there are 2 possible contacts, but they haven't had any contact at all for the last 18 months, 2 years.
And I suggest we don't need it. It's a privately owned facility.
Yeah.
It's on private land owned by, I think, an unincorporated society. And I know they also, it's looked after by their water group that they had for the water supply. So that's who looks after it. So that's why you won't find the connections. They are looking at options. I don't think we need to have any connection whatsoever.
Okay, so we're going to have no appointee on there. Are people happy with that? Terrace Community Plan Group. They've just completed their plan, haven't they? Or draft? It's in process. Have we had anybody on that group? You're on the Hall Committee. Do you liaise with the Hall Committee?
It's a similar case that they haven't required to liaise with me. and I haven't required to liaise with them, so no.
Are you happy for your name to stay
Yeah.
next to them? Do we want to put a name next to the community plan group?
I think it would be useful for you to be put in contact between parents.
I'm happy to do, I went out there during the election and met someone at the hall and
Well, because of course when we had Annabelle here, she was part of that community and that made, it was quite easy to have that connection.
yeah, I know quite a few from out there and I was out there, like I say.
Cool, thank you, Sarah.
I'll take the hall one because it's a bit like your
Carry on with that
Bannerboom one. Yeah,
I'm in the park, you do the hall.
yeah.
I know they want to show that, so I've started.
We did give the school some money for their swimming pool last year.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
And Cromwell District Promotion Group, Bob is our man on there. You happy to continue with that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So we're just going to have a wee look and make sure we haven't overloaded too many people. So at the moment, there's Bob's got a couple, I've got a couple, Sarah's got a couple. Neil, you have 3 next to your name.
Yeah, good. They require so much work, but I'm happy to give one to anybody who wants it.
Yeah. And Mary's also, yeah, super. All right,
All caught up?
happy?
I'm just thinking a bit out loud.
Yes.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I know. Who got Kaiser Community Group? Yeah,
You
I'm
don't.
just, well,
It's good to know what you've put your hand up.
yeah, I know, that's what I'm just making sure that I'm going, well, the other two don't require anything from me, but if someone thought, because I think Mary only number one, if you want a second one, I'm happy. I don't need it, don't want it,
Yeah,
but
Mary's got an open community connection as well. So,
On your Twitter.
Kaiser Community Group would be a good one.
You might get invited to the local
Oh,
meeting
yeah.
and stay on the Lowburn one.
Yeah, because Logan, you know, you're more like, you just go to the Christmas party once a year in the, yeah, in the middle of it. Which I'm going to go to anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I don't think that.
perfect. I know that Tara has it well noted down, so that's awesome. So that takes us back to our recommendation. Need to read them out, who's got what, or can we just say that we have appointed representatives? When we have, yeah, okay, so recommendation that the board receives the report, accepts level of significance and appoints representatives to the community group organisations as per the agenda.
I'll move.
Thank you.
That helps.
Thank you. Everyone in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Super.
Can I suggest, what happens after a while, we all forget which ones we've got sometimes. And I've sat in this meeting before where someone said, yeah, so when we do our, our register of interest, we should just have them in there. Just
That would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys, we have sat here quite honestly and go, who was that again? Did we change that halfway through?
If you've got a group that isn't
Yeah,
really
active.
connecting with you, just to remind you that maybe you could look with
Buck and I didn't know, and I just told him it was him.
Decorations.
Was it? We should have thought to look there.
Yes, it's always been there.
So are you paying attention to your agendas, councillor Gillespie?
I'm on page 213, Madam Chair, waiting to be the instructions there on the next page.
Okay, well, it's not quite the next page, but we are on
216.
22.7.8, which is page 216 of your agenda, which is the proposed meeting schedule for the remainder of our term.
You can proceed on there now.
It's already changed.
So this is, yes, the remainder of 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
If we look at 2023 first, the only one of note that I think you might be interested in is the February meeting, which is just switched around with Manitoba Community Board. And so you've got to have yours on that Thursday. That's the only sort of change around. The normally on Tuesday, sometimes on Monday, depending if there's a hearings panel on the Tuesday. That's the only one that's a sort of a curly one around that sort of time. The 2022 meeting schedule, note in the attachment, it says on Tuesday the 29th, but it's been moved to Monday the 28th. But that is in your calendar. If you look into your calendars.
I'm kind of a bit concerned about the number of changes that we've had over the course of this last few months, actually, because the 2021 calendar showed this inaugural meeting was due to be held on the 1st of November, and then it was changed to, back in August, it was changed to the 2nd of November, and then of course it was changed again to the 3rd of November. So we've had 2 changes to that one. Induction Day was also advised to be the 19th of October and then was changed to the 20th of October, but only with 10 days notice. And because of that, unfortunately, I had to change a hospital appointment. And of course, now we've got the November meeting is changed and the 2023. Yeah, so I'm a bit concerned about the sort of number of changes that we've had. The website actually says that the meetings are generally held on a Monday or Tuesday, and you mentioned the February one. Or is there a reason for that? Is it something to do with Maniatoto not being able to hold their meeting on a Thursday, or?
We just changed it around. I suppose thinking of practicalities. The start of the school year is around about that time, so it's easier to move that later in the week, and because all the MCB ones, elected members, don't have that problem. So I just thought that might be helpful just to change it around.
If I could add to Wayne's comments, Bob, I understand that it can be frustrating when they change. There will be further changes, it's just inevitable. There's 36 elected seats in Central Otago, and managing that and the requirements on staff as well as certain things that come up along the way. We try really hard not to move them, but from time to time it is necessary. I apologise when that causes anybody inconvenience. Try to give as much notice as possible.
Can I just ask what's going on in May? There's 2 blues.
Yes. Now there's a cluster together of all the meetings. That's in case we need to have hearings for the annual plan. So we have separate days put aside specifically for those hearings. If, for instance, they weren't needed, then we'd to take them away. That happened this year. We had them, and then it was found that they weren't needed, so we just took them away. Yeah.
Don't get excited with them taking them away. They'll put new ones in. And yesterday at council, we said there's going to be a number of workshops likely here now as we head towards long-term plan for the following year.
And we may end up with workshops around the developments that we have from the long-term plan process, like the hall project and the town centre project, which may mean that we've got either times before our meetings in the mornings or other dates over time, because that's when the architects and the people running those projects are available for us to. Okay.
The saving grace sometimes that I've found has been the fact that now we can attend via Teams. So at least if you're not able to be here in person, you put in your pajamas and be part of the meeting.
Or take yourself off the beach.
I've done that. Yes, well, others have been on the beach. I've had to sit inside a room. Thank you.
Sorry, just one other thing I'd like to point out on page 221, which is the, I guess, the sort of list of meetings. It says for October, inaugural
Oh yeah, I forgot to delete the inaugural.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's not the inaugural meeting. No, just a
standard meeting.
just a Word document that I've been this year.
Let's not have a second inaugural.
No.
You're just inviting me to be sick again. All right, so that takes us back to page 216 in our proposed meeting schedule. So with sort of noting that it is, we do know that it is challenging if things have to change, but there's usually good reasons behind changes to meeting schedules. The recommendations are that we receive the report, and that we adopt the proposed meeting schedule. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Mary. All in favour?
Aye.
Or against?
Just note they'll be in your calendars presently.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Can't wait for the 30th one.
You love hearing from us.
Yes, mate.
Okay, so
No,
that then takes us to item 22.7.9, which is on page 224 and is the appointments to project advisory groups. Wow.
Okay, so as everyone is aware, there are two advisory groups that the board is involved with, the Cromwell Memorial Hall Group and also the Cromwell Wall Group. For the Memorial Hall project, we've had Anna and Nigel as the community board representatives on that advisory group. However, at this time, as you can see, Nigel was not on the community board for this triennium. And so there's a need to think about a replacement for Nigel on that advisory group. However, what we're recommending is that that Nigel remains on that advisory group in a capacity as a councillor, as a ward councillor. But that's open to your debate, whether you would like to do that or pick another person from amongst yourselves to take over that position. And secondly, the Cromwell Wall project, the board representative was Verna, who didn't seek re-election, so that's actually a vacant position within that advisory group, and so we'll need to, or you will need to pick a new representative for the community board on that advisory group.
And of course, Nigel is on that group as a councillor.
As a ward councillor,
As
yeah.
a councillor and a community
Board,
member
it
on
does.
that. Sorry, Sarah.
So that didn't come up in the council meeting as something that was reallocated or confirmed to my memory. Am I correct, or did I miss that one?
No,
No,
From the backstage, through the chair, the board made these decisions initially. The reason why the recommendations are what they are, it's around continuity and contribution to those advisory groups, and being aware that Councillor McKinley is no longer on the board. We gave consideration to the fact that he was involved in the Cromwell Master Plan, the Spatial Plan, and involved in the LTP. He's done period of time on both of these advisory groups and been has gained a lot of knowledge and experience in it, and so it's been incredibly helpful. So that's the reason why we've departed from what the board initially decided, but as Wayne suggested, it's entirely up to you to configure it in the way you consider.
but he will continue on in that.
It's your decision.
Well, as on the council side, sorry, I'm just confirming with as council for the mall, that remains unchanged because his position as councillor will change. Right. Thank you.
Jill.
And so in that capacity, will he come back and report to us at our meeting?
So that is a conversation that, it's another conversation for us to have, is about what that would look like in terms of him participating in meetings where we're considering items on those things, if he's involved in those PAGs. He, of course, wouldn't have voting rights around our table, but we could agree to have him at the table so that he can contribute and report back and be part of the conversations that occur around those two items if he remains on those PAGs. So that is a consideration that means that we would then be ensuring that he was able to be present when we were considering those items, because of course, if he's sitting on the PAGs, he may have other information that he wants to share with us.
Yes, it would be him being here as part of the PA.
I just think that for that reason of continuity, those two projects are not insignificant. You know, one's $38 million, for goodness sake. You know, for someone else to try and pick that up now, and then not be able to support the other hall represented back here would be, you know, a potential loss. And at the end of the day, we are a creature of council with delegations that they give us. It's not in, it's a situation where in the past all three councillors used to be appointed back to work some other issues that changed to 4 councillors, only 3 appointed back. Yeah, that's just the way it is. But I think we need to keep that continuity as these big projects that we've spent a lot of time and effort to get to where we are with carry on. And I think, you know, the case of the hall in particular, if Anna can share that with Nigel to report back to us. You know, and otherwise, you could just come as part of the PAG and sit with the staff and the team. He's part of a committee, so yeah, keep the connection going.
So at the moment, we're talking about Nigel on the hall project. I think it does make sense from a council perspective for a ward councillor. He is a ward councillor in terms of the mall project. Is there any other discussion around the hall project? Oh.
Well, my feeling really is that, you know, Councillor McKinley was appointed by the community board as an advice, you know, to the advisory group by the community board as one of 2 representatives of the community board. And so he reported directly to the community board. And I can't see that if he's a member, if he's no longer a member of the community board, he's really got no link with this board and doesn't have voting rights. So I think I'm very much against that. I think it should be 2 members of the community board who are appointed to that advisory group. That's my view.
Thank you, Sarah.
Where are we at in that timeline of the project? It's probably been directed at you a little as to, yeah, and from an architecture perspective, you go through that developed design and then you go into the next phase. And sometimes a sanity check is actually quite healthy to bring somebody fresh in. Is it a good opportunity to actually do that, or will we lose? Is your gut feeling that we lose too much? I mean, we have got 50% retention with Anna seeing that through.
So through the chair, I don't want to have an opinion on this, but we are moving to prelim designs at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of opportunity to get this up in this project if it's required.
Yeah.
From a continuity point of view, makes logical sense either way.
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that, you know, it's not a bad transition point if you are only bringing 50%. Obviously, we're not replacing both, that would be ludicrous, but with your continuity, perhaps there is an option that somebody, you know, comes in without losing that knowledge. I'm just, rather than to say it's the only way forward, is it worth looking at whether somebody is as suitable as Nigel would have been in that position to bring a different view of a project if there's not so much to learn that it's detrimental, I guess is the question.
Cheryl. I kind of look at it in terms of that still, regardless, the hall, yes, ultimately, all its OPEX will then fall on the council. So it is a council, ultimately it is still a council project. It is a being led by the community board, but the responsibility of the ongoing OPEX is actually council. And it doesn't hurt to have a council representative on the board who has had that.
But the mall needs a council representative. That's how it's set up.
The hall. That's what I mean. The hall. I actually think that it's not a stupid thing to have a council representative on the hall.
Are you suggesting that in addition to this petition, position that
I'm not necessarily saying in addition, I'm just saying that I do think it's wise to have a council representative, and in that case, he would be the perfect person because he has had that history and that involvement. And I think it would be very wise for him to be able to come back and address the board and actually keep them informed as to the progress of it, along with you.
Are we confident that there is the ability to do that on Nigel's behalf, that he comes here, having been in the community board for so long and now not being? That's possibly a little contentious.
I think that's my suggestion, that if he were to come back to those meetings, he comes back as a member of the PAG group. So I sit here still as a member of the PAG group, but usually they would be sitting at the other end of the table where Wayne is. If we've got reports back because we've had a PAG meeting, then we will have the team there. So he would be there as part of that team rather than part of this team, although he is still a Cromwell Ward Councillor. Sandra, you had a comment that you wanted to.
It was just to make the point that the advisory group is just and only that. It is an advisory group. All decisions still come back through this process.
Taking that one step further is that it's not just about continuity, because it actually goes back longer than what the hall's been going. There's a whole master plan process that got us here, and no disrespect to Madam Chair, but she wasn't part of it. Nigel has been from day one. And
Part of the master plan.
right back to the early days, all the way through. So before you joined, with what was happening prior to that, and I think that the benefit that Nigel, like being our appointment onto the PAG, is you get that continuity. Otherwise, you haven't got that, and no disrespect to the staff, but a lot of them weren't necessarily involved in that as well. Some were, but I just think it provides that pool of knowledge to understand why some decisions were previously made by the board as well, that Nigel was part of. And I think then with Anna with more recent experience, and you just, to me, just keeps that continuity. And I think the key thing is that, as the CEO has said, is that they don't make any decisions anyway. It's just really supporting, and then there will be a link back through to council, not through the funding of the hall going forward, because that'll be us, but for the museum potentially, depending on where that ends up. So there's a council connection, and also the council need to consider what its connection to the hall is as well. So it makes sense to kill two birds with one stone.
Louise, you had something to
And I just wanted to probably reinforce what Dan's just said, is there is a really strong connection between the two projects, and that's mainly around funding. So the board and also to council and some parts of the project have to make decisions about significant funding and across the two projects. It's really good to understand that, because some components of the town centre could actually end up being part of the wall. And so I think it's a good crossover to have council and community on both. And the other comment is there has been some discussion about whether the project governance group has some oversight as well, because of the scale of these projects, probably particularly the town centre. And Councillor McKinney is also on that. Rise up another layer of continuity, I guess. Not essential, but helpful.
Mary, did you have any thoughts?
How many people are on the project advisory group?
So we have.
There were 2 community board members and then 2 members of staff,
And then we've been liaising with the architectural team. So that's two staff, 2 elected members, and then the team from JazzMax have been the group on that. How many are on the?
So exactly the same structure for the town centre. So it was 1 councillor, 1 board member, Louise and myself, and then obviously in respective architects.
No, yeah, my thoughts was this was just you and Councillor Chair and Mr. McKinley were the only representatives, and there were no other staff representatives. That was a significant loss, but if there's 2, if there's 4, then it's okay. But I think continuity, especially for the JazzMax team, might be preferred. But also end up with slightly longer costs rather than the free going someone.
Happy to leave that one for a moment and then talk about who we will appoint to
town centre or mall. Thought we had renamed it the town centre and now we're back.
Oh, we go.
The mall on the hall, not down in the house.
So when someone says something in the quietly spoken voice like Cheryl, I'm going to say lawn or hall, I'm not sure. You always got to say, what?
What I'm hearing around the table from that discussion is that there is a concern from what seems to be a majority of people around continuity, and that Nigel would provide that continuity and we would be able to provide an opportunity for him to be here on those meetings when the PAG is here to make sure that any his insights or thinking is able to be shared that he's got from being a part of that PAG. That's what I'm hearing at the moment. We'll come back to that when we go toward our recommendations, because there may be some people who've had another think or who want to contribute something else. But I think that we know we have to appoint somebody to the mall project, and I suppose it's really thinking about who would really like to be a part of that and who's got probably the skill set to contribute to that project. And I think you might be the person who's got a skill set that might contribute quite strongly to that project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would really enjoy that opportunity. I think my experience in resource management, community engagement, urban regeneration and urban design probably suit it quite well, and would probably help the project advisory group have some form of continuity, having had Berna being a resource management planner, and then at least they get a new person, but they are still a resource management planner, so they don't need to retrain them from the ground up.
That makes sense to me. I'm only one voice though, so if I could hear from other people.
I am definitely interested in the project, but I think it's quite important to figure out what would be, excuse me, the most suitable skill set. You and I are similar but different. If she wasn't interested, I'd be right there.
Putting outside your dream.
I think it's, having watched the whole progress, and obviously this is in a very early phase, I think it's really important that you have somebody that is aware of the commercial side of this as well as the holistic side. So it's absolutely, it's got to be one of those skill sets. I would love to be involved. Obviously, you only need one person. As you say, the continuity from Verna to you, I'm happy to support that. Noting that if ever you disappear.
I have had that conversation with Sarah as well, and I know that she was and has.
I mean, the project
very strong skill set in that area as well.
So, yeah, I think planning and resource management is something that we need to be. It needs to be really top of that project agenda. So it's a good skill set to take in there. It'll be strong.
Everybody else happy if Mary's name goes to that recommendation?
Any name but mine makes me happy.
Not your bag.
I think the key thing is that, and we're a bit blessed, aren't we? Because we've got a couple of people that
We have absolutely got
really good skill sets, and no disrespect to Bob or to Cheryl, but we've got some good skill sets and bring those some fresh eyes, which is a great thing. And if it come down to us having a vote, I'd really like them to, you to pencil it out, because
yeah, and probably under a different set of circumstances, we may have had both of you on that project as councillor and community board member as well.
I think the council continuity is going to have someone from council anyway. There's a big chunk of council money involved in the town centre. We might become the second fiddle to it.
How likely we have to start in the morning the next 2 years? Maybe I'll just keep Nigel off next time. I'll wait. I'll wait.
I don't think in 3 years' time it's a big one. Which one come through?
There you go. I'll wait. That's
I'm getting a report, aren't we?
We'll still be talking about whether or not we demolish it.
The town centre. Yes.
And we have a
Don't go too quick, all right? Don't go too fast.
workshop on the 23rd,
Yeah.
25th, can't remember.
So exciting things will be happening.
What,
Quite slowly.
have we got other bloody meetings or not?
Please send the invite, councillor Gillespie.
It's in my diary, thanks. I've replied already, all right?
Rumbling going on over on that side of the table.
Just gone deaf in your old age.
The thorns.
I think we might have to. Right. All polarity aside, that takes us back to our recommendations, and at the moment, we have A, that we received the report and accept the level of significance. B, that we recommend that Councillor Nigel McKinley remains on the Cromwell Memorial Hall Project Advisory Group in his capacity as a Cromwell Ward Councillor. Agree that Anna Harrison remains on the Cromwell Memorial Hall Project Advisory Group, and agrees that Mary McConnell will join as a representative of the Cromwell Community Board to the Cromwell Mall Project Advisory Group. You'll word that much more simply than me, won't you? Okay, and I've got teachers here and remember Sarah. Are we at a point where I'm happy where I can take a
Oh, sorry.
mover and a seconder for those motions, for that recommendation, please?
I will move it if that. Would you like?
Seconder, thank you, Cheryl. All in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Yes, I'd like to vote against actually D.
And would you like to put in the minutes that you voted against that? Thank you, Bob.
Sorry, can I just clarify, Bob, what you vote against?
B.
B. But you said D and I'm going. Just checking.
That's the problem with Moreland Hall. Same thing.
Councillor.
Town centre.
Down centre.
Sorry, make sure that.
Town centre.
Okay. So, the date of the next meeting, page 227, is the 28th of November at 2 p.m. 1
It
p.m.
was one, so
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
have you done that just to keep us on our toes?
I think that it is because of travel commitments.
Got something on my calendar for 12.
So the 12 o'clock will be our members only session. We just had our informal get together.
Okay, thank
Close on before.
Wow.
Yeah, it's intention at the First Bank Community Boards to do a bit of what's been happening with community boards with the key things coming up. So we'll provide
So there'll be a bit of a workshop
a bit of a workshop at the beginning, so members only time, and then be a workshop for staff. Primarily a lot of it sits in the Weezers area, just to especially bring the members up to speed around the key things that community boards looking at.
Great, thank you, Saskia. Meeting closed. Thank you, everybody. I think we're going to have a really good term together. It's my